Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today's video, we're going to take a look at some armies in Warhammer Age of Sigmar that need some new models. And we're also going to talk about what those models should be. Now, this is going to be a video that talks not only about armies that maybe need new sculpts, and we'll talk about those, but also talk about armies that need something added to their range as well to really just sort of give them that little bit more, I guess, personality on the table rather than being some sort of, I guess, monotonous look across the tabletop. You know what armies I'm talking about here. And so today we're going to look at 7 of the armies because 7's a nice cool little lucky number. And we'll look at 7 of these armies and we'll look at some new models that we think should be added to that army or should be updated for that army. What I like to do is I like to get everyone's thoughts on what you would like to see for your favourite armies, for armies you think need new models. Is there this army that you know there's something exists in the lore and you'd like to see that as a proper model? Well, hit us up in the comments, let us know what you think. But this is going to be our list of 7 armies, and I'd love to hear everyone else's down in the comments below. So let's get cracking on into this. This is 7 armies who need new models and what those models should be. And so, number 1, we have Skaven. Now, this is an army very dear to my heart. For those who don't know, Skaven were actually my very first Warhammer Fantasy army way back when. While Wood Elves were my first models, Skaven were the army I got into first, mainly because Wood Elves did not have a book out at that point in time. So, first of all, there's 2 parts to break down for Skaven. First of all, we've got the resculpts. Now, these are the models I reckon that should and need resculpts. The Giant Rats and Rat Ogres. I would love to see a resculpted version of these. Rat Ogres especially. I have always loved the idea of Rat Ogres. I am definitely a partial to Moulder and Skryre more than the other clans. But I think Rat Ogres could have some really awesome models. I've seen the Storm Fiends, we all have, and they look amazing. Imagine Rat Ogres redone like that could look absolutely amazing. Obviously, next, Skryre Acolytes just need a kit, so they're not $190 Australian for 10 models. And weapon teams as well, just all getting resculpts. I mean, if they could just go find that Islander Blood kit and reprint out that Warpfire Thrower, or, you know, resculpt that, and just copy that, that would be a perfect model to have replaced. And of course, we've got the other ones, the Doomflayer, the Warp Grinder, the Rattling Gun, and the Warpfire Thrower currently, because they are the older ones, definitely need it more than the other 2. And then Plague Monks and Plague Censer Bearers. I think this is a dual kit waiting to happen, even with the fact that GW don't do many dual kits nowadays. I don't think it's that hard to put flails and staves and swords in the one kit to just change some weapon options out. You could easily have this, because the Plague Monks could have, you know, both their hands in the air with their weapons, and then you just have a 2-handed build version of that for the Censers, and you could have a really cool, useful unit. Of course, Clan Ashen, everything for that just needs an absolute resculpt. It is by far the most unloved clan they have. The Arch Warlock and Warlock Engineer need resculpts as well. The Warlock Engineer, I'm not sure whether we ever will see a resculpt or whether that will be phased out in a new book and just replaced by the Bombardier entirely. That is completely a thing that may happen. And of course, a new Master Molder would be nice. I mean, this could come along with a new Packmaster kit that comes with the Rat Ogres and Giant Rats in maybe a new box, and you resculpt that, you can have options for a Master Molder inside that kit. Now let's talk about new sculpts. So first of all, an Eshin Triad. Now this was an old unit you used to be able to take when you played Clan Eshin in different versions of Warhammer Fantasy, where you effectively had 3 assassins in a unit. I think this could be a really cool, fun, like elite Skaven unit. And then an Eshin Sorcerer, once again, an old thing you used to be able to take was Eshin Sorcerers. I mean, a shadowy mage with some cool shadow spells would be really nice, just giving you some more versatility to Skaven. Plague Rat Cavalry, definitely coming back on the Plague Rats, so you used to have the old Nurgle model on one, which was awesome. And then, so following on from that, I'd like to see the old, like, Warlords on their mounts, so like a Rat Ogre Bonebreaker, but I can imagine what a Bonebreaker Rat Ogre would look like now. It would be massive. I'm thinking something absolutely huge, like the size of Bone Ripper for Thankyou, but for a Warlord could look really awesome. And a War Litter would just be, you know, like maybe a 50mm base Warlord for Skaven, you know, like a 9, keeping him under that 10 wound bracket. Wound model with like 4 Storm Vermin holding him up on like a little Palanquin. Harbinger of Mutation, another cool old wizard we used to see. This was a Molder wizard back in the day. And the last thing, Rat Dragon. I mean, Skaven really lacked that massive centerpiece, and I think a Rat Dragon could be really cool. Get one of those new dragons and absolutely mutate it. I mean, we had the blind worms that they made the Hell Pit Abominations out. They used to dig up out of the ground in Warhammer Fantasy. So why not make a giant mutated Rat Dragon? Could be pretty sweet, I think. And next up, we have Fyreslayers. So, reimagining a lot of old sculpts isn't a thing that they need for the army. They are an Age of Sigmar only army. However, the Fyreslayers are definitely the army, I feel, in Age of Sigmar that have the smallest release and definitely need the most help with some new models. So with that, I've thought of some new things. I think the one everyone is asking for with Fyreslayers is obviously some form of mini Magmadroth cavalry, sort of like maybe an elite style cavalry. I imagine these creatures would be somewhat similar to maybe the Karkadrak for Chaos in size, and maybe like just smaller versions of Magmadroths. Maybe Magmadroth younglings or something is what they actually are. Could be a really cool sort of addition to the army. Now, on that note, I think what we need for Fyreslayers is a truly big centerpiece as well. The Magmadroths aren't that big. They're really cool. Like, I love the Magmadroth model. It is my favorite part of Fyreslayers. And if I was playing Fyreslayers a little bit more, I would definitely do the Magmadroth heavy army you can do. But I think a Magma Dragon for your Runefathers could be really cool as well. We've obviously seen the Forge World Magma Dragon. I don't quite imagine that, but maybe a resculpt, reimagining of what a Magma Dragon is, and having a giant Fire Drake for the Fyreslayers, because dragons make everything better. Next up, Fire Elementals. We've obviously seen the Fyreslayers invocation that allows them to summon the Molten Infernoth. Well, what happens if we got Infernoths as an actual unit? I think that could be a really cool unit of having these Infernoths that your priests can do, and maybe that gives Fyreslayers some sort of summoning as well with the Infernoths, the ability to summon Infernoths, or at least replenish the units with fire-based runes and stuff like that. And lastly, a Flame Cannon. I think we lost the Flame Cannons when the old world ended and the Dwarf range got gutted, but I think the Flame Cannon could definitely be a cool artillery piece for the Fyreslayers, or even bring back that good old Goblin Hue of the old, well, I think it was the Slayer Pirates, had the like axe throwing war machine. Was pretty cool. You could reimagine that into Age of Sigmar. I could just imagine how amazing that would look. Would be a really sweet addition to Fyreslayers. Next up, number 3, Idoneth Deepkin. Now, much like the Fyreslayers, they're an Age of Sigmar only army, so don't require us having updated sculpts. However, I do think there's definitely a lot of models that could get added to this range. For me, this is one of the ranges that's just so easy to make something new. Of course, I guess the simple thing here is grab Sea Creature, add Idoneth on top, new unit is the simple formula you can follow, but let's be a bit more specific than that. I think the first thing to look at is Achillean Foot Troops, giving you some elite infantry in the game that's not necessarily eels, so you can get that sort of better quality troop, but in more quantity, instead of having to rely on, the low numbers of the eels. We've obviously seen the Foot Achillean in the Underworld's Warband, so I don't think this is a really big ask. Beastmasters and Pack Beasts is another fantastic one that we could add. Obviously, we saw things like Krabnos and all the other cool little creatures. Like we could have different swarms of different types of fish, maybe some piranhas or maybe, swordfish and stuff like that. A Beastmaster unit with like little beasts that he can command to do abilities to, and like a unit, I think would be a really cool thing for Idoneth. And speaking of that, mixed units could be really well. I think there could be some symbiotic units in the army. So maybe a defensive unit of Achillean Foot Troops, but they actually have maybe these giant shield crabs in the unit or something like that. They work together, and the shield crabs provide defensive buffs while the Achilleans actually work as the fighters in the unit. Could be a really interesting sort of unit build to have. Lastly, some Alapex cavalry. Now, the Alapexes that we have currently are very much more sort of chariot-like, I think. I'm talking about having Alapexes that are actually ridden by riders that are much more combat-orientated. So, like an actual rider, not these two charioteers that the Alapexes currently have, could be another cool unit to add to the range. Number 4, Ogor Mawtribes. Now, this is another range that has a bunch of resculpts needed. First of all, the Ogre Man-Eaters. We've obviously seen the cool Pyro Ogre coming out in Underworld, so I can't wait to see maybe some of the other, I guess, iconic Ogre Man-Eater models, like the Ninja, the Cathayan, I guess, Arabic-style warrior, even the female Man-Eater, all made into some glorious resculpts will look amazing. A cool kit here with a ton of different options for some really unique-looking models would be fantastic. Butchers and Slaughtermasters, obviously, I think you could easily do some cool new resculpts of them. That Cauldron could look really sweet with a brand new model. Gorges, I love the lore behind Gorges on these gutless ogres born without a gut. The story behind these creatures is awesome. I don't want to see them disappear at all. I really do love the idea of them. Most ogre infantry, to be honest, could use resculpts. It's definitely not 100% needed, but they are getting quite stagnant. The models, they're very blocky. They have that sort of Warhammer Fantasy Regiment look to them. Much the same as Nobblers. I think both units are fine. They're definitely not on a high priority list, but it wouldn't go amiss. Much like how the Skeletons got a redo. I don't think the Skeletons need it, but they were very blocky, and the new ones just look a little bit nicer, a little bit crisper. Definitely a much better upgrade on the unit. The Firebelly, and we'll talk more about that in a sec, and then the Hunters and Frost Sabers, though we did get a Hunter and a Frost Saber model cool in that Underworld Warband. Just give us Frost Sabers and just keep that Hunter model around and you're probably fine. Speaking of Firebellies before, I think the range to expand is the Firebellies range. Show us some more of these weird Firebellies and exactly what they're all about. Explore this area with the army, and I think you've got a range of models you can add to it. And lastly, Nobbler Trappers. We could definitely bring back the Nobbler Trappers, giving us a cool unit that could definitely lay some traps and do something interesting with the army. As another sort of small screening unit of Nobblers, but this time providing, rather than screens, I guess, truly, this unit could be providing traps and making things into deadly terrain, etc. Could be really quite fun. Number 5, the Maggotkin of Nurgle. Now, this one might sound a little bit silly, seeing as we are just a few days away, or a few weeks away, rather, from a brand new Maggotkin of Nurgle book, but I do think they've missed a few beats on adding some more models to their army. Obviously, we've got the resculpt of the Chaos Sorcerer coming, hence he won't appear in this list. We definitely still are waiting for resculpts from the Harbinger of Decay, and both Epidemius and Festus. The fact a couple of named characters haven't got resculpts is definitely a thought on maybe the Games Workshop isn't exactly sure what they're going to do narratively with these characters yet. The Harbinger may very well disappear in the brand new book, we don't know yet, but definitely resculpts for all three of those characters are needed. On the talk of new sculpts, I think the one everyone is disappointed with, mainly because we've seen Slangor come out and we've seen the Zangor come out for the other two armies, is definitely Pestigor. Now, it'll be interesting to see what we get for Pestigor. Slangor are obviously that larger sort of model size, and the Zangor are pretty much just normal sort of gore sized. I think Pestigor, we could definitely see some 40mm sort of bloated, maybe, I don't know, maybe some bloated gore that are just these big fat models on 40mm bases or something like that. Could be really cool. And the last thing is cultists. I feel that Nurgle is the last army without a true sort of cultist element to its army. You look at things like the Disciples of Tzeentch, and you've obviously got Karak Acolytes, and I do think that Tzeentch definitely needs a more elite choice for that. But the two for me that have the best ranges of mortals are actually Slaanesh and Khorne. Khorne has, of course, Blood Reavers, then Blood Warriors, and then it's got the elite stuff like the Wrathmongers as well. And then Slaanesh has the same thing, where you've got your Blissbarb Archers, you've got your Blissbarb Cavalry, and then you've also got things like the Painbringers and the Myrmidesh Twin Souls. So I think some smaller cultists, things that aren't the big models like the Blight Kings and Blight Lords, just some general sort of depraved cultists, maybe even Plague Zombies or something like that, could be a really cool addition to the army. Number 6, Seraphon. Now, this is one of the armies where I don't think they need a lot of new models, but resculpts is definitely something Seraphon need. Now, looking at the models that are still metal and plastic for this range, we've got things like the Slan Star Mage. Obviously, we saw the update to Croak, so I can't wait to see what a reimagined Slan looks like. We've got all the Saurus characters, things like the Saurus Scar Veteran on Cold One, the Eternity Warden, the Astrolith Bearer, and all the others as well. And along with the Skink Priest, they're all metal or finecast. Definitely do need a bunch of upgrades for these particular kits. Chameleon Skinks and Croxigors are currently finecast, or are the Croxigors plastic? They may be, but either way, I extremely dislike the current Croxigor models. I actually like the old metal ones from like 5th edition Seraphon better than the current Croxigor models. Salamanders and Razordons could be a cool dual kit for a pack. And then Saurus Warriors Guard and Knights, while they're definitely not the most urgent repackages because they are all plastic and you can get them at a decent price, I do think they do need something new for them. They're all really blocky. They're showing their age. While not the most immediate, but look at that cool Saurus Warrior picture there. Like, get him resculpted and get them looking like that. New sculpt wise, I don't think there's too much. Now, Horned One Cavalry would be amazing to see. This is the Skinks riding Horned Ones, which are like a more fast, agile, and vicious version of Cold Ones. And then a giant dinosaur, like a Brachiosaurus or Ultrasaurus, with a Howdah with a ton of models on the back could be pretty sweet. I know there's a word for it for the Seraphon, and it is completely eluding me, and I can't find it on anywhere. So if you know exactly what I'm speaking of, let us know in the comments. And number 7 on our list, Sylvaneth. Now this one is a little bit of a personal pick. First of all, resculpts are pretty simple. The Branch Wraith and Dryads are starting to show their age, and they're probably the only models that need to be resculpted in the entire range. New sculpts, well, I think there's one way to go with this, and that is add the Kurnothi to the range, please, GW. I will buy all the models. You could definitely see a ton of stuff coming out from this. We've seen archers, a swordsman. We saw the cool centaur cavalry. We've also seen the Beastmaster and the lion. I think there's so much you can add to this army, adding in Kurnothi, so please give me a Kurnothi army, I will buy it all. But that is our list of 7. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on what they would like to see for their favourite army, what you'd like to see, what armies you think need some stuff added. It'd be fantastic to have a chat and have some discussion. Well, that's the end of the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also, drop us a comment in the video and let us know what you enjoyed about it as well. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine community here at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by following the link in the description of the video to our Discord server. You can come chat with me and other members. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by joining Patreon or YouTube members linked in the video's description, or by getting some merch from Teespring, also linked in the video's description. We'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel on Patreon and YouTube members, so a special shout out to our Patreons: Christian Weir, James Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lyle, Alderon Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Idoneth226, Anton Nielsen, JJ Austrian, and Average Wargamer. And a shout out to our YouTube members as well: Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Steve T, The Real Zealot, Chris Wallace, Turai12, Vinny, Lock Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, and Wolfric Nick. Lastly, a special thanks to Lady Witchfox Art, who does the amazing artwork you see on the channel. Everything here is done by her. She does an amazing job, so thank you very much. And lastly, a special shout out to Xmorphic, who does all the background work on the Discord server, keeps it running smoothly, and makes it amazing because I am terrible with computers. So thank you, Xmorphic, as well. That's it for today, though, folks. Stay safe, everyone. Stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.